Welcome back to the FloTrack podcast. I'm Kevin Sully, joined by Gordon Mack. FloTrackPodcast at gmail.com is our email address. We're also live on YouTube. You can watch the show on the FloTrack podcast YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed, you should subscribe right this very moment. Gordon, happy Monday to you.
Happy Monday to you too. Wasn't a good weekend for people who are from Philadelphia. I'm wearing my now defunct Philadelphia Phillies team. We got
Mm.
swept by the Braves, so that was unfortunate. Um, Eagles just got beat by the Chiefs. Ben Simmons is still a Sixer. All this is going on in my head. At the same time, I'm in charge of doing a track and field podcast, so I'm trying to balance both things. Think about track, commentate about track, but suffer
Mm.
as a Philadelphia fan. So I'm putting the Philadelphia things on the side, and it's a Monday. It's either a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday where I think about track. So I'm all in to recap the London Marathon and other newslings of the weekend.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I feel bad for you. Very, very tough.
You should.
Um, we'll start with London Marathon and then talk cross country, but we really want to get into the World Athletics rankings because people were very upset about the final World Athletics rankings for 2021. I know that they were circulated at least the top 10, but everybody is ranked here on these on these rankings, so we can go through that a bit later. Let's start with the London Marathon recap, though. I know you watched probably the whole 3 hour and 40 minute watch party that Cathal and I did during the show or during the race. Woke up at 2:30 yesterday to record that, Gordon. So first of all, I just wanted to thank you for offering feedback, watching all of it. You were thinking, man, at an hour 27, a little low energy, Kevin. Maybe next time, pick that up. But it was fun. If people want to go relive it, you could go watch it. 3 hours and 40 minutes. Me and Cathal talking. He told some good stories. Good time.
Or you can listen to it on Spotify
True.
or anywhere where you get your podcasts.
Put it at
Let's relive
1.5x, and then it's not three
relive
hours
the
and 40
marathon.
minutes.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, it's a fun race though. We have the deepest, we can say the deepest women's race in history. So you had 5 women under 218. That's never happened before. Jocelyn Jepkosgei wins, and she was one of the favorites going in just because she had this great buildup. Didn't have to run the Olympics, which turned out to actually be a blessing for her here. Really turned it on that second half. Dropped a 4:56 mile late in the race and ran away with it. So she's now won 2 world marathon majors. She's got second in another fast race in Valencia. So her marathon career is off to a real good start. But as expected, Gordon, top to bottom, this was fast. Bridget Kosgei wasn't in that main breakaway, but still held her own to finish fourth, less than a minute back in 2:18:40. Salpeter, who had came in with a 2:17 PB, she was fifth in 2:18:54. So we had a top five of Jep Kosgei, Ezemeru, Bakary, Kosgei, and Salpeter, and the field produced. I mean, there were 12 women there for a while who were clicking along at that 2:17, 2:18 pace, and we thought basically only half of them need to stay together on this, and then we're going to get the deepest race in history. And that's pretty much how it transpired. Some people fell off on the back, but there was enough depth up there to produce this great race.
Yeah, and do you think Jepkoskai's win is going to be the start of us recognizing that the runners with the most advantage here are going to be those who did not run in the Olympics?
You're talking about for the fall season. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
that's a great point. That's a great point as we move on to Boston, Chicago, and New York. Now, New York, I think, is far enough away to where it
yeah.
would be a different conversation. And New York is going to have Perez Jepchirchir in the women's field, the gold medalist from Sapporo. So yeah, that was the theme, right? That was the theme in the on the women's side of things was the women who competed at the Olympics did not fare as well as the ones who did. But I also think what we're getting here too is a real interesting women's field shaking out because you got to consider Jip Kosgei one of the best. Kosgei not willing to write off just because she had to turn around so quickly and run this race. And then you have Jip Chirchir, who, if she goes Olympics and then wins New York, you'd have to consider her one of the best. I think we're heading to a 2022, perhaps, where we have three titans in women's marathoning internationally.
Yeah, and they'll be good. And we got to find a way to get all three of them at the same race because we couldn't even get that at the Olympics, right? It's wild
Right.
that you can run 2:17, win the London Marathon, and you weren't seen by your governing body of your country as like, yeah, we want you to represent our country at the Olympics. Why wasn't she selected to be at the Olympics, Jabkowski?
Well, you're not going to leave off Bridget Kosgei, world record holder,
Yeah.
and she had this streak of wins in London and Chicago. Jep Cheer, solid. Obviously, she wins a gold medal. That's justified. The third was Ruth Chepngetich, who didn't run well at the Olympics, but remember, she had won the world championships in Doha, and she had put up fast times as well too. So there wasn't really a reason to leave any of those three off. Combine that with the fact that Jocelyn Jepkosgei had only run two marathons and only had one win, and that was a reason. I just think she hadn't established herself enough as a marathon star yet to be put on that team. Now, Athletics Kenya and a lot of other federations who select teams and don't use trials, they get it wrong a lot. They get it wrong a lot. They make bad picks. I don't think this was one of them. I just think this was a case where she didn't have the resume quite like the other women did, but that's not going to happen again. Now we know exactly who she is and how good she is.
Yeah. And maybe it's a blessing in disguise, right?
Oh,
There's
100%.
always the next year's Olympics. It gives you kind of a competitive advantage in this fall season. You get your first major. Is this her first major win? It's her first major
New
win,
York.
right?
New York.
Oh,
New
she
York.
won in New York as well. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, she won on a fast course in London. First London win.
Yep.
Like that's just gonna skyrocket you. Now you have even a faster PB. You're gonna be rolling through the next few years in the marathon cycles. So hey, not everything is about the Olympics, which we will get to when we talk about these world athletic rankings. Um, and I think that showed in the marathon here. So she's set to go on a pretty good run these next 3 to 4 years.
Yeah, and London, remember, next year is going to still stay in the fall.
Yeah.
So there'll be a crowded fall schedule again. The question is, well, what do they do in the spring? Because now Koskai would be fully rested. Chip again, if she wins in New York, we consider her in that big three. So do they all meet in the spring? If so, where do they meet? Or maybe they meet that late winter season there. We've seen more people trying to get in three marathons a year as opposed to two. It's a really exciting time in women's marathoning, and not just because the times, but because of the figures involved. Again, Jip Kosgei, 2:17:43, big PR. Azamiro also under 2:18 with a 2:17:58, and then Bakare 2:18:18. It was just PRs across the board there. Bridget Kosgei didn't get a PB, but I'm going to give her a pass on that because when your PB is 2:14, you need everything to be completely perfect, not just with your shape, but with the course and the weather and everything. The weather cooperated, and they ran well. It was a funny situation, Gordon. Uh, they had a 2:17 pace group and a 2:18 pace group, but the 2:17 pacers, nobody followed them. So all of the work fell onto the shoulders of the 2:18 pacer, and there was only one 2:18 pacer, and there was three 2:17 pacers, and they never really adjusted. It was funny to watch, but the 2:18 pacer did a spectacular job of doing a little bit more than expected because she's carrying basically 10, 11 women in that group for a long time, and then she had them under 2:18 pace for a little bit by the time she stepped off. And then Jepkosgei was allowed to take over at that point. And there was a little bit of time there where you thought when the projection was hovering around 2:17:30, man, can she get Mary Katani's London course record, which is also the women's only record? And she wasn't able to do it. She drifted back a little bit. But I think maybe if they had even more help in the beginning, that could have been a possibility. She was really strong in the second half. As I mentioned, she had that 4:56 mile late in the race, but I think there's more there for Jip Kosgei. I'm not going to say, hey, you can run 2:14 because only one woman's done that in history, but I could certainly see a 2:16 next year in London or Berlin or Valencia if the weather cooperates.
Yeah. What'd you think about the men's race? 2:04, almost breaking 2:04, but we didn't get a 2:03. We were close.
Yeah.
What'd you think of that men's field?
So that one was similar in terms of we had a fast time projection throughout, slowed a little bit at the end. The difference was they had six in their pack as opposed to 12. So when things slowed down and when people fell off, they were only left with a few folks, and that was Sisse Lema, the eventual winner in 2:04:01, Kipchumba, and Garamu. Those were the three who really separated themselves towards the back half. It was weird from the jump because Shura Katada, actually, it was weird from the press conference because Shura Katada said he had a hamstring injury. And if you say you are injured at a press conference for a marathon, you must be pretty injured because usually no one says anything if they're slightly injured. And then you find out afterwards, oh, they hadn't run for 2 weeks or they hadn't done a workout in 6 weeks. So to admit that you're injured means it's significant enough to where they know, hey, I can't hide it. People are going to tell from the get go. So Katada's off the back 2 miles in. I thought he was going to DNF. So that was your London defending champion. And once he was out of it, then you're thinking, all right, there's only five, 4 or 5 more, or 5 or 6 more guys who have the PBs that put them in contention, right? Because you don't think a 210 person is going to win the race. So you're looking at all the 202, 203, 204, 205 guys, of which there really weren't too many after Katada. And that group of Legasse, who was really talking big going into the race, Evans Chibet, Titus Ikiru, Garamu, and Kipchumba and Lema. Ikiru dropped out, so then it's down to five. Then the three break away. And the two guys who went 1-2, Gordon, like Kipchumba's PB was 205 going in. Now he got second in London last year, so you're like, oh, this is a legit dude. And Sisse Lema has been around for a while, hadn't won a major before though. It was kind of unexpected. And you and I talked last week, hey, this is maybe going to be the first sign of, okay, who can challenge Kipchoge because his field is so deep. But I don't think Kipchoge is too worried about
Yeah.
someone challenging him if that person is a guy who's been around forever and has seen Kipchoge. It's not as if there's this ascendant 22-year-old talent who went out there and breezed to a 202. This is someone, Lema, to his credit, who's been around on the scene, been plugging away for a while, and had his day on Sunday.
Yeah, we're not get. This wasn't the AAA to see who's going to go up to the majors to go up against Kipchoge. This was, it's a good race. 204 is nothing to joke about. What's it? No blink. I don't know. What's the
Sneeze
phrase?
about.
Nothing to write home about. No, I don't know what the word sneeze about. Yeah, but like, um, it's still like a legit time at in London, 204. You take that anywhere, you're going to be one of the top 3 or 4 in any field that you enter. So
Mhm.
it's still an incredible performance, I think, for those two men up top. One thing I did think though, 204.01, ooh, you're so
Yeah, yeah.
close, just 1 second away from being sub 204. And it got me thinking, what is the worst 01 you can have in track and field? Like, is it 10:01 in 100? Is it 11:01 in 100 for women? Is it 4:01
Mhm.
for a mile? Like, what is, obviously there's always these barriers, but what's the one that's like, God dang it, like I was just this close to breaking it, like it like hurts the most.
I think it's got to be something long enough to where you think, man, if I had leaned or if I just took a little bit better line at the end, I think it's a mid distance barrier or
Yeah.
a long distance barrier for. This is like, do you really feel bad for a 204.01? I mean, it's their time, right? Like if Kipchoge did a breaking two and it was 2:00:01, I think that would go down as the most brutal in history, right? Because you do
Yeah.
26.2 miles and to miss it by a second is just devastating.
Yeah. I guess I agree. It's probably more like a 401 mile probably sucks more than like a 201 800 for a woman, right? Yeah, I would
Yeah,
guess. I do think though, I think the worst is 10:01 for 100 because even though it's the shortest distance,
yeah,
it just feels so good to be a sub 10 runner than it does to be like a 10:0 runner. I feel.
right, right. So this is interesting, Gordon. If you had told me that we are going to have the London and Berlin marathons take place, and after those races, you're going to have the total amount of sub 204s for the men be zero, I would have taken that bet. I would have taken that bet 10 times out of 10. Because right now, you look at the yearly lists here in the marathon, it's actually it's kind of strange. Titus Akira's 202.57 from Milan is the best the fastest time of the year, and then you got the rest of basically the Milan field up there. Like we have not seen the fast fall marathon developed, and part of that is hey, Kipchoge is not there. Hey, a lot of people are coming off of the Olympics, but we got Chicago, which is quick coming, but then you have Boston, New York that aren't that quick. Whenever there'll be a fast European marathon as well too to end the year, but we're not seeing the crazy times at least.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Chicago, we might get something at Chicago, at least on the women's side.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, we already got the fast things on the women's side in
Men, I'm
London,
talking
but
men. Men. Women have
yeah,
been great. Women have been
women have
great.
been great. Yeah. I would think for American women, Chicago's the place to be. But yeah, maybe Chicago men, they pull it out.
Yeah.
I mean, it'll be wild if like Galen Rupp finds a way to just like
Hmm.
come out of nowhere and like break the American record. That'll be kind of wild. I mean, I don't think it's going to happen, but it'll be kind of like a good way to go from like your disappointing eighth place finish at the Olympics to all of a sudden be like, hey, it actually wasn't too bad
Yeah.
of a year. 2021.
Tyrone points out in the chat the 1 second miss cost him 75,000 because it was a 2:04 bonus, which is something Cathal and I were watching because he was celebrating too down the finish line because they London focused on appearance fees and time bonuses. The winning amount was not that much. There are other races that give out better prize money just for the top finishers. This was really incentivizing fast times, but I guess he either wasn't aware or wanted just to celebrate or
How do
thought,
you
hey,
not be aware?
because winning probably your shoe company gives you a lot of money too. So you're just
True.
thinking, hey, I'm going to go out there and win the race because some of these time bonuses were nuts. Like if there were course records and world records, which world records are pretty far out there, but course records were certainly possible on the women's side for a while there. At least some of those numbers were going to be pretty crazy. And then it wasn't just if you won and got it. If you got sixth and ran 2:03:45, you still would get the time bonus associated with that. So it was a lot to run for out there. Um, we got some feedback on the most brutal 01. Tampa Eagles says 350.1. See, but if you run 350, I just don't feel bad for you because you run 350.
Looks like Travis brought up Alex Rogers Tiefer's page, and he has a 4 flat .00. So that's got to be pretty brutal. That's not a 401, but 4 flat 00. You be point. Look at that. Yeah, that's the that's probably the worst feeling ever. You're like, really? I mean, it looks nice and flat and everything, but
Yeah,
he's going to be lumped in the same category as all the other 4 flats, 401s. You want to be in the 359 club, right? So he did eventually join that club for the record. He just had to wait a few more
that's what I'm
races.
saying. If you never did it, then it's particularly brutal. But if you eventually got around to doing it, then it just makes a funny story. But yeah, 40000 is tough. Because if you go 10-0, it's just not as many zeros, so it doesn't look as
Yeah.
as brutal. And again, 10-0, you're elite. You'll find your way to another race. You'll figure it out. But 400, it's the barrier that people think about as a mid distance runner growing up. Did you want to talk about Shalane Flanagan? Now 2 for 2, Gordon.
Yeah, 2 for 2 run. She, I don't know what's going on with her, but she's like, yeah, I'm gonna go even faster. She runs 3 minutes faster. She runs
Yeah.
not eight. She runs 2:35. She ran 2:38
Hmm.
in Berlin, 2:35 in London. It was a positive split. She went out harder than she did in Berlin, so she kind of
Yeah.
was bonking a bit, but still runs 3 minutes wholly faster. She talked about her. She talked post race. Her her recovery was fine between the two
Yeah.
marathons, but she's more kind of just gearing up for the big double, which is upcoming this weekend, and figuring out how
Hmm.
to fuel and recover between Chicago and Boston, which will be the talk of the town. Because like after Chicago, the entire like American press are going to want to like talk to her, and she's going to be like, "I can't talk. Like I'm not done." It's like You know how like after
Mhm.
the prelims of the semifinals of the
Yeah.
100 and the finals are the same
Yeah.
day, everyone just walks through the mix zone because they have to get to the final. She's gonna be like, I gotta just walk through this mix zone and get on a plane to get ready for Boston, and I can do my interview after that. But she seemed like good spirits. She definitely created a barrier of 3 hours. I think knowing she was much better than 3 hours because if you know
Yeah.
you're trying to break 3 hours and you're breaking it by over 20 minutes both times, clearly, she probably could have made it sub 2:45 if she wanted to, but I
Mhm.
guess she wanted to give herself that chance to run a 2:59 in Boston because of the Chicago back to back. But this got me thinking about this. If she's able to go
Yeah.
2:38 and then 2:35 a week later, there are a lot of I mean,
Yeah.
we sometimes see it. I think Galen Rupp did it once, but I was talking in the car about while I was at the wedding. We was in a car with a bunch of runners, and how like you spend multiple months building up to a marathon, right? And it
Mhm.
all needs to go right on that day because you spend all this time training, and it really sucks if you just don't have a good day because it makes all that training not worth it, right? Because maybe
Yeah.
you have a
Yeah.
side stitch, you just don't go well. But I feel like most people should be like signing up for backup marathons. So if you do train for a marathon on this one weekend and it doesn't go
Mhm.
well, you decide to
Yeah.
abandon it like 10 miles in because you know this isn't a day. You recover and then you get ready for the next marathon a week later because clearly your body can handle it. Shalane's doing it where she'd do it a full marathon back to back over 2 weekends. But I think there might be
Mhm.
something about you know, recreational marathoners who are trying to achieve like a personal goal to have your backup marathon in the pocket like a week later so you can
Yeah.
know, hey, if you're not feeling right here, save it and go for one last throw at it a week later because your body can handle it.
Yeah. Pros, they run into contract issues if they do that. I know that year in Boston, where there was question about whether people will be released from their contracts that said, "Hey, if you DNF our race, you can't run another marathon within a certain window of
Oh,
time," which is something I didn't know about going in to prevent exactly what you're saying. You just get your
yeah.
appearance fee, you show up, you run 10 miles, and then you skedaddle, and then you go to the next one. Flanagan, she started with the mass start, and she was showing like a 2:31 projection for a long time in this race, and I believe that to be accurate because she mentioned afterwards she slowed a lot at the end. So there was like a good period of time there where I was like, all right, if she's cruising at 2:31, because I was just assuming, hey, she's 6 days, 7 days after her last marathon, she's got another one coming up, another two coming up, another three coming up. Another 4 coming up. What if she just decided midway in this marathon, "This is it for me this fall." How fast could she have run? Like a 2:20, 2:28, 27? But then she slowed down and said, oh, she had gone out too fast. So I tempered my expectations a bit. But there was a while that I was thinking, is she gonna finish top 15, top 20 in the if she were to be in the elite field in this race? And then I think ultimately probably a good thing that she slowed up? Or I mean, I know she was forced to slow up just because her body shut down, but I think she's gonna need everything she has going into these 2 back to back because this will be unlike anything she's ever done before.
Yeah. And when all is said and done, when we hopefully she pulls it off, especially the back to back ones and at the end of New York City, you're gonna look at these 6 marathon performances and you're like, all right, what happens if she's not doing 6? If she's just doing one, what could she run based on this fitness
Yeah,
that we're seeing? If you're showing consistent 230 fitness over
yeah,
42
yeah,
days, what can it be if
sure,
you only do it for one day? And maybe
yeah,
she comes out of retirement and does Boston one last time or something like that, or runs at the Olympic trials in 2024. I don't know because clearly she didn't
yeah,
she didn't she didn't decide when she retired. She didn't truly retire where like sit on the couch all day.
yeah.
She's clearly been very
Well,
fit.
and someone like Yuki Kauchi, who runs a million marathons a year and has a schedule similar to this year after year, maybe not as extreme, but he has certainly points in his career when he's run volume around this range. You always wonder, okay, if he runs fewer races, how much faster can he go? And with her, she hasn't run like that until now. So you do think, hey, if she went back to just running one race, or even if she just did two, she did one at the beginning and then one in New York, you think it'd be quicker. Travis, can you pull up the Chicago women's elite field? Because Gordon, what I want to know is, if you were her, would you want to start with the elite field in Chicago? You could be sucked into a way too fast pace because you're trying to be competitive on one side, but then on the other side, you could beat a good chunk of these women in this race, because you look at the elite field. Ruth Chepnegich at last check was the only uh, top level Kenyan in there, and then you got Hall, D'Amato, Bates, Nakuri, Flanagan. That's 228 or faster, right there. If she runs another 235, I mean, she's faster than some of the people on this elite list with in terms of PB, or in terms of, I guess, season best.
I don't know. If she runs sub 240 at Chicago, there's something crazy going on because you should not run 239 or faster knowing in 24 hours you got to do it again. Like she should go out and try to run 255. Like just chill, get through it, then kind of go harder at Boston, and then you have time to save up your legs for the next one. But like if she's out there running in the 230s for the first half of this race, you're like, what are you
Yeah,
doing? You're gonna start you're gonna be like, what's going on? I mean, it's a competitive athlete in her, right? It's hard
yeah,
for her to purposely run slow. Like she probably feels like she's running as slow as possible, but she's just so
yeah,
good that as slow as possible is 240 pace. But yeah, you think she's gonna know, all right, I don't
yeah.
need no 230s
Well,
in this one. I just need a 259.
the test would be if she does it in Boston. I have no doubt she can do it in Chicago. If she does it then back to back and then puts a fast one up in Boston, then that's crazy too. Like I think that's where she's got to be careful with Chicago. Is just not overdoing it. But the field in Chicago is so is so wide open here because of how these fields broke down. It has to, like, a little part of it's got to be tempting. If she didn't, if this was it and she could go for it on this one, it'd be fascinating to watch. And she
Yeah, I
didn't
mean,
have
is there
Boston the next day. If she just cut loose on this one, it'd be crazy.
and try to win it
I want the simulation. I want to know, because I want to see her do the double and see what she does. But I also want the other world where she goes all out in this.
where she
Not,
actually
maybe
like
not even
wins
winning
one
it. I
of the
mean,
marathons.
well, Ruth Chepnegich is great, 217
But
PB. But like, just amongst the Americans, could she be top three amongst the Americans on her
yeah,
third
well,
marathon in 3 weeks?
yeah. When I say win it, you need someone to like the DNF. Like if Ruth DNFs and like Sarah Hall doesn't
Yeah,
have a good day, all of a sudden you're like, oh, I could win this marathon,
right, right.
right? So that's
And
what I'm
she
saying.
gets her second world marathon major doing a stunt where you're doing 7 marathons or 6 marathons in 7 weeks. I think she's filling Tokyo with a run in, like, a virtual one in Portland. So she's really holding herself to the 6 marathon thing.
She's doing a virtual one.
She's gonna run in her home, Portland, do like a 26.2 mile virtual marathon, basically. Probably the travel, I'm guessing, was difficult and trying to figure
Is
things
there gonna
out
be
last minute because
a
Tokyo just got
is
canceled
there
not
gonna
too
be
long ago.
a course certifier to make sure it's certified 26.2 and not
Yeah.
we don't want those Strava segments, can be plus or minus a few meters are here. So we gotta make sure
Yeah.
she's holding to it.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess, and tomorrow, sorry, Wednesday's show, we'll go more into the Chicago and Boston fields in some too, because it'd be fun to look at that Boston women's field too to see where she fits there as well.
Yeah. So we'll talk a little bit about cross country at the end of the pod, but first, I think we should get into something that kind of riled up some track and field folks on the
Yeah.
internet. And everyone thinks they have the same opinion. Everyone is
Hold
agreeing
on.
with each other, but I
Hold on.
disagree with all of them.
Here's what I
Okay.
want you to do though. Just humor me this. I don't want you to get preemptively mad about what other people are saying. I just want you to explain your perspective on the World Athletics rankings. Can you do
Okay.
that?
Well, I have like kind of
Don't
multiple
like
perspectives.
Okay, yeah, do that, but just don't, like, start, you know, countering other people's random Twitter people's arguments right now. Like, just start first with what you feel about the rankings. That's what I want to know.
Okay. Well, I first of all, the rankings, when you look at it right now, the rankings did a good job at finding the people who are most dominant this year. Elaine Thompson-Herah, if Elaine Thompson-Herah wasn't number one in these rankings, there clearly is a flaw in it. Safan Hassan has been utterly dominant. We saw what she did at the Olympics. We saw she continues to chase records. Rojas has been the equivalent of that at the triple jump. Every time she's out there, you think she's going to break the world record. And then Kip Yegon and Fraser Price, they were like the number two in their disciplines behind Hassan and Thompson. Now, Kip
Yeah.
Yegon has beaten Hassan, and Fraser Price has beaten Thompson, but when you look at the body of work, Hassan has done more than Kip Yegon, and Thompson-Herah has done more than Fraser Price. So the top five makes sense. The thing is, when you're trying to rank every athlete in the freaking world across multiple events, there's
Yeah.
going to start to become a lot of gray area and a lot of, wait a minute, this person over that person. And people are going to start to expect their biases to be favored over the reality. And so when we look at this ranking, they look at the number 6 runner or athlete, Femke Bol, and you're like, wait a minute. You're telling me the 6th best athlete in the world is someone who got third in the Olympics in the 400-meter hurdles behind 2 women who broke the old world record? What's going on here? And if you look at those rankings, you don't see Sydney or Dalila anywhere until, let's keep going. Sydney is ranked 24th, and Dalila is ranked, I don't even know, beyond that, right? So, the 30th.
30.
So, how does that happen? Well, it happens because these aren't descending order lists. These aren't just your best time of the season, and then rank it that order and make sure the equivalent mark of what 100 is to a 400-meter hurdle. It is
Yeah.
based off of body of work for the entire season, and it takes your 5, not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5 best performances in the year. And when you look at Sydney and Dalila's best 5 performances, only one of them is all time, and that's the Olympic one, right? Now, the
No.
second best
Trials.
trials,
Trials. She
but
broke the world. Broke the
yeah,
world
yeah,
record
okay,
trials.
trials is good too. So you have 2. What about the other 3? Okay. The thing is, what they're trying to do is they're trying to rank athletes based not just on time, but performances at track meets. And the fact that Sydney and Dalila were like, we don't need to run the Diamond League circuit, whatever, hurt them. If Dalila decided to run the Diamond League, she would probably be ranked in the top 5, but she chose not to. So if you let's go back to those rankings, Travis, and let's just compare Femke Bol's 5 performances to Dalila. So let's click on Femke Bol. If you click on it, it should pop up and scroll up so we can see it. So her best 5 performances, she's run 52 3 times, 53 twice, and if you scroll over to the right with it, you can see the place scores. So she got 200 points plus on all of her 5 best performances because she was winning races that were category GW, DF, or Olympic games. Diamond League finals, Olympic games are like the mega ones. And then GW is basically Diamond League level events. So her 5 performances, 4 of them were wins at Diamond. She won the Diamond League finals. She won 3 other Diamond Leagues and then 3rd at the Olympics. That's a lot of extra clout to these victories or these performances than just running 52 seconds in the middle of nowhere. Now let's look at Sydney or Dalila. This is Dalila. Look, so you saw it was 200 plus performance scores. She has a 300 from the Olympics, the 200 from a Diamond League, but then you have a 140, an 80, and a 140, right? That's the issue. That's the problem that you have here. There's a lot of
Okay, but 50. hold on. So she runs 52:42 and gets 80 points at the trials.
Yeah, because
Is that fair? Is that
that's a problem. That's a problem with the rankings, and that is
yeah,
because
that's
all national championships are created equal.
here's the problem too
Because
with this
you
with this
can't
specific
say
that's crazy
Americans
though.
get
Come
to
on, that's
have
crazy.
a better. But what's
Okay.
how is a
Let me
world
ask you this
governing
question.
body going to say USA championships are more important than the Jamaican championships? How can
Well, I
they
think
do
you got to
that?
look at the it does it's not about it shouldn't be about what's a championship. It should be about the quality of the field. And I think you bring up a good point about Diamond League getting more points, which in theory should be true. But you just said Muhammad and McLaughlin didn't run all these Diamond Leagues. So Bowl, who's had a great season, take nothing away from Bowl. She won every single race except the Olympics. People might have forgotten that. But the value in the Diamond League is, hey, the best people are running. That's why you get points. And we just talked about how, save for a very few races, the top two women at the Olympics didn't run any of the Diamond Leagues. So you're basically it's just a name brand thing. Because you went to this meet that had Diamond League in front of it, you got more points and you're expected to be against a more competitive field, but that competitive field didn't materialize. That's one of the problems.
Yeah, but then what about a situation where you win the Olympic Games, but you know all the best athletes chose to do a different event? Like, it's a watered down 400 this year because this person's
Mhm.
out, that person's out, that person decided to scratch.
Here,
There's
yeah,
injuries.
yeah.
Like the field's always
My
changed. You know,
my takeaway is it's tough to obviously go event to event, but when we're talking about the women's 4 minute hurdles, for example, you're looking at within the event. I just I saw some comparisons like, well, you got to honor the regular season, right? You wouldn't rank go to the men's 100, Travis. You wouldn't have Jacobs number one. But like, there's got to be a way in our system to differentiate between a Marcel Jacobs of the world versus a Sydney McLaughlin of the world, right? Like, that's the problem here. We all know that Sydney McLaughlin, top five athlete this year. Jacobs is down there in 25th, and he ran a lot of Diamond Leagues this year. Didn't win, but he ran a lot of Diamond Leagues this year. Um, and I'm starting to think there's just not a way within our system to ever quantify this stuff correctly. Because guess what? And I know it's a different situation, but when they decide World Athletics Athlete of the Year, do you think Sydney's going to get invited to the top three in Monaco? Do you think
I
she's
don't
going to
think
be on
so.
that finalist list? Well, I'll tell you one thing: she's not going to be 24th or whatever in the voting, right?
Yes, that's
They're
true.
not going to they're not going to put Bowl. They're not going to invite Bowl and not invite McLaughlin. That I know for certain. Now I know rankings and the athlete of the year are different things, but there needs to be a little bit more symmetry between them. But I'm just starting to think we can never rank this stuff accurately or properly.
So I just did a little. If you were to ignore um, the performances. So basically, ignore where you're running these because that's basically what caused Sydney and Delilah to fall down, is because they're doing some impressive performances or just really good performances at non-diamond leagues or at a national championship, which doesn't get as much credit as doing it at a diamond league
Yeah,
final or an Olympic, right? So if you just look at the raw score, which doesn't account for where you did it, it's just purely based off
yeah,
of your time.
yeah, yeah.
And you take the best five performances. Del- uh, Delilah's average is 1,238 points. Femke
Hmm.
Bowles' average is 1,245 points. And Sydney is 1,254. So, based off of just pure time, it goes Sydney, then Femke, then Delila, based off your
Yeah,
top five performances. Problem is, while Sydney is getting a big bump for her Olympic win, Femke's getting even a bigger bump for having four Diamond Leagues plus a Diamond League final
yeah,
wins. So
yeah. And she didn't. I get it. Sydney didn't race a ton, but there's got to be a way to quantify the fact that she broke the world record twice, and her times were out of this world. And I mean, people want to throw in, oh, the 4x4, like that makes things even more complicated. But we know it when we see it. We know that she's top five athlete this year. It's just the system it has obviously clear limits. What about the men? What'd you think of the men's order? So you had Carson Warholm one. I don't think anybody's arguing about that. I think that's a solid pick for number one for Carson Warholm. Krauser two, again, competed a lot, world record, no one close in his event. Mondo three, then you go DeGrasse and Bednarik and Curley, 4, 5, 6. We are just talking about Jacobs, right? So those three guys all compete, well, 100 and 200 there. Jacobs mostly just in 100 and indoors in the 60. They go 5, 6, 7. Damian Warner in the decathlon, seventh. Really hard to quantify his performance. He doesn't get the opportunities to compete. Jakob in 8. Dos Santos of Brazil in 9. So ahead of Benjamin, probably for the same reason that we had on the women's side of things. And then Pichardo 10th, Cherry 11th, Benjamin 12th.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you have another 400-meter hurdle conversation here with Dos Santos. Why is he ranked ahead of Vi Benjamin? And it goes down the same reason on the women's side because Dos Santos ran all the Diamond Leagues and Benjamin didn't. This is a situation where Warholm decided to run the Diamond Leagues. Warholm
Yeah.
had basically a similar season to Sydney, but Warholm got all the extra bumps because he decided to compete at the Diamond League level, where Sydney was running at the Music City Carnival in Nashville, on like a
And
Tuesday.
she was running a lot of high hurdles. Remember that? There was a high hurdle part
Yeah,
of
she
her
was running.
season. She ran more high hurdle finals or as many high hurdle finals. No, she ran more high hurdle finals than low hurdle finals. She ran one in Phoenix, one in Azusa, one in Eugene, and one in Walnut. That's 400-meter hurdles. She went Nashville, trials, and Olympics. So it's 4-3. She actually ran more high hurdles than low hurdles.
But those high hurdle marks, if she would have ran world class times in them that were
Right.
better than her
I
400-meter hurdle, it would
yeah.
have counted towards her
Right.
total because it's
Yeah.
only 5 best performances. So if she
I'm
had
just
only four
explaining
400 hurdles,
as
that fifth high hurdle would have counted. But
okay. But Warholm versus Warholm, who ran Oslo, Monaco, Olympics, Zurich, Berlin. He actually didn't race a ton this year, relatively speaking, for Warholm standards. But you're right, he did it in the Diamond League meets.
yeah, it's purely just you're going to be ranked high if you win at the World Athletics events. Like that's the whole point of the rankings is to incentivize and promote athletes competing all at the same area in the same location and not in the middle of the woods like the Bowerman Track Club does, or
Yeah,
a random track meet here and there. Those random track meets are great for fans engagement, all that stuff, but
yeah.
when it comes down to it, World Athletics says you are as good as you are when you show up to our events.
I just think
So,
you should be able to look at these things in 5 years and have a good idea or a good snapshot at how the season went, and you can't on some of these. Men's, I would say you're pretty close. There's obviously some issues there, but at least that top group
but
for the
like,
men
okay,
makes
so
sense. For the
why
women,
is why
women,
is
you
why is Sydney so great this year? What does she do after the Olympics?
it's
She did
not. Well,
absolutely
she
nothing.
broke the world record. She broke the world record twice, and she put it way out of reach. She had a similar, bump in performance that Warholm did in his
But
performance. That's why
if the Olympics
it
is all
wasn't
that
just she
matters,
took a
then why do
tenth
we?
off of it.
If the Olympics is all that matters, why do we even have track meets after the Olympics if it doesn't matter? Because
It's not all.
if she was already
It's
number
not all that
one,
matters.
why did we even bother having a sport?
It's not all that matters. I mean, she did it at trials as well too. It obviously it carries a ton of weight. That's just the reality of the sport, and I think with the rankings need to reflect that. Like we know it when we see it. We know that it's not. We can differentiate as track fans between what Jacobs did and what Sydney McLaughlin did. So we can't just say, oh, well, he won at the Olympics and then didn't do anything after the Olympics, and she won at the Olympics and she didn't do anything after the Olympics. So they're the same thing. He shouldn't be top ranked in the 100. She shouldn't be top ranked in the 400 hurdles. I just think we can. And my issue isn't with, again, Bull had a great season. Bull had a great season. Like Bull deserves to be way high up there. It's just like when you put her whatever she was 24th, you're losing credibility if your job is to rank things to say that there were 23 better performers this year.
Okay, hold on. Let me see. This might prove my point. So you're telling me that we need to be able to say that Sydney did something more impressive than Marcel Jacobs, right? Is that what you're trying to say?
Well, just in general, I think we need to be able to properly rank people who don't race a ton, but we know had an all-time great season.
Okay,
And
Lamar Jacobs
that's tough.
score. Yeah, sorry, I'm
Go
interrupting.
ahead.
I'm being rude.
No, you got it. Go ahead.
Lamar
Go, go.
Lamar Jacobs' score is 1423, and Sydney's is 1424. So the rankings did say that Sydney had a better season than Jacobs.
By a point. By a point. But that's exactly, you just proved my point. That it's only a point is a problem. And what did he get? He got a ton probably for winning the Euro 60 indoors, correct?
Maybe. I don't know. He got credit
I'm
for he got credit for winning the Olympics.
Olympics, as he should.
Yeah, European indoors. He got some good love for that one. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Again, I don't want to make this all about Sydney and the Formula Hurdles and Muhammad and Bull. They were all fantastic. All I'm saying is there are athletes that break the ranking system, and there are athletes that fit perfectly into it. Warholm fit perfectly into it, and Krauser and Mondo, they fit really well into it. In fact, you could almost make, man, the World Athlete of the Year is gonna be interesting. I think Warholm's gonna get it on the men's side, but Krauser's got a really good argument. I think his depth of
Yeah.
performance, not.
I think
Uh,
Krauser should get it, in my opinion. If I had to
so
pick someone.
here's another extreme example. Travis, scroll down on women. People are asking in the chat about Thing Mo. Now, because she's in the NCAA, she's posting these amazing times. The weighting is way off, obviously, towards NCAA athletes. So she's at 49. She ran pre after the Olympics. That was the only Diamond League. But I want to see her top. Can we click on her profile there? What's funny is Nian Saba's one in front of her. Nian Saba should be way higher as well too. So her scoring points, the Olympics with the 155.2, pre the 155.0, uh, her semi in the Olympics 158, then a 156 at trials, and then the
Yeah.
what's the NCAA indoors in the 8.
Yeah. Basically, for people watching, you see the column that says place score, PL score. It's the second farthest to the right.
Mm-hmm.
At 350. That's really how you know how people are getting ranked, because all these people, their raw scores are all incredible, right? Because they're running the fastest times in the world. So their raw scores are going to be in the 1200 range, right? Across the five.
Yeah,
The thing that separates you from being a top 10 in the ranking versus in the middle of the pack is those five scores, those place scores. And someone like Femke Bowl was 200 or better in all five. A Thing Mo, she had a 350, a 200, a 140, a 100, and then a 15. She only got 15 points for her 158 at SEC indoors because it's considered an F category meet. So that is the issue. Like, if all a Thing had to do was go to one Diamond League event, right? Run
yeah.
157, and then all of a sudden you're going to get 150 more points plus on that one
Mm.
level. And if you're able to, that's going to dramatically increase your score average up higher. And that's just how it works. So it's just a matter of, do you have, you need to have an Olympic place score, because that gets the best. And then having 4 Diamond League place scores is how you get into like the top 30, top 20, top 10. And
Okay,
there's a lot of
so
American athletes who just didn't go to Europe and do the Diamond League circuit. So they're going to get ranked lower.
dumb dumb question. Why? So they're not considering her 400 here?
What, I mean, her 400, where does she do the 400? Like that time.
NCAA outdoors.
Let's see. Okay, so I'm going to screenshot this.
49,
Remember?
49, 50,
Okay,
49, 57 from NCAA Outdoors.
Travis, go to the go to the female world rankings, women's 400, and then change the countries to United States, and let's see if she has a 400-meter ranking. She does. So her best 400-meter ranking is 1283,
Okay.
which actually would be better than her 800 here, which has her fifth best 800 is a 1227. So if you were to include her best 400 and replace her fifth best 800, it would improve her score. What I'm guessing here is the rankings have a rule where you only allowed to combine events that in their minds make sense. So the one and the two and the four, the 15 and the 3K or whatever. Like that could be a thing they need to fix. That's a
Yeah, you
situation
think?
where
You think?
if you are
You
a
think?
4-8 athlete, you know,
Well, okay. Hold on though. Hold on. Then, but let's go to Safan Hassan. What did they consider for Safan Hassan's marks?
15, 5, and 10. They gave her all three.
Okay, so why do you get a 15-10 consideration, but you don't get a 4-8
I think maybe
consideration?
because she ran them at the Olympics. So,
Olympics, yeah, yeah,
I mean, that's going to be, yeah. I think they should include anything you run, right? I don't know why they wouldn't include her. Like, if it's you, who cares if you're doing the javelin throw and the 60-meter dash? You're an
yeah.
athlete. You should get credit for everything you do. I think maybe a reason why, though, they want to limit the number of doubling is so they don't disenfranchise an athlete who only can do one event, right?
Okay, well then, but they got to be consistent, is what I'm saying. If you're going to
Yeah.
count 3 events for one person, you can't do it for another. Yeah, here's Nian Saba. Put up Nian Saba again. I'm sorry if that was already up there. 3K, 10K, 5K, 2K. They did the 2K.
So they include them all.
They
Yeah.
put in even they put a fake event on there. That's amazing. And so she was still that low. Nian Saba was still that low. I guess just because of the location of some of those meets. It When I saw Safan Hassan's scores there, I actually thought the Olympic weighting was too heavy because her third place in Tokyo in the 15 was more points than when she actually beat Faith Kipyegon in that ridiculously fast Diamond League. Like that's out of whack then too.
Yeah. I mean, it's all about time too, right? I don't know.
Yeah, wasn't it?
It's
It
hard.
wasn't
You're
that
ranking
fast.
all
I
the
mean,
people.
yeah, no, it's
It's
difficult. That's what I'm saying. I don't know if it's possible. Is my point. I I, I think you
There
can't
is an error
create a
though. They
system.
should have they screwed up a Thingmo's ranking. That's what I'm taking away from this. So actually, because they screwed with Thingmo's ranking, let's fix it. Okay. So wait, maybe they didn't screw it up. Yo, they did. Okay, so 1283. Okay, so I'm gonna add this up. So we have 1599, 1453,
Yeah.
1337, 1334, and 1283 equals the average of 1401. So a Thing Mo's true ranking should be 1401. So where does that land on the list? 1401.
38.
Yeah. So that's where she should be.
Right. I mean, it's obviously still too low.
Still too
Yeah.
low, but she should be 38.
Yeah. Well, we could go through this whole thing about these European meets getting weighted more than obviously non-European meets and how they weight
Yeah.
NCAA meets. We could get into a whole other discussion on that. But I saw people talking about it and arguing. At first, when I saw them posted, I thought it was just one person's rankings.
Oh yeah, yeah. No.
And then but then I saw I was like I looked at it I was like oh World Athletics actual official rankings like this is the official one. So this is the U.S. rankings, Travis. So Katie Najat, Valley Allman, Courtney Frericks, Sydney McLaughlin, Dilla Muhammad, Gabby Thomas, Shamir Little, Kenny Harrison, Athing Mo, Kate Grace, Cornera Hayes. Yeah,
Well, look at
I
that.
mean,
Sha'Carri Richardson over Allison Felix. I'll get
and
people going.
13 and 14 there. I don't. Yeah, I mean, Najat medal, Almond medal, Frericks medal, Sydney medal, Dula medal, Thomas medal. Like those make sense, I guess. It's tough to quantify it, but again, I just think Sydney's got to be. I think Sydney's got to be
Yeah.
higher. Yeah, I think Mo there in ninth, just ahead of Kate Grace by 9 points. But I think she should obviously be in the top. I think Mo should obviously be in the top five of. Like
I
Courtney
mean,
Frerich's
maybe
great, great. Courtney Frerich's had a great season, right? But like I think Mo had a better season. I
you know
don't.
what
I think
might
most people would
solve
agree
this
with that.
problem
What's that?
is
Some,
instead of it
some
being
tweets.
5 best performances, it's only the 3 best. Because if it's a 3 best, those like fourth and fifth best performances that screw you over because you did it at a local YMCA and not at
Yeah,
the Taj Mahal in Monaco, like that could change your ranking. So I guarantee you, if you only take a thing's top 3 performances against everyone else's top 3, she becomes probably a top 10 in the world, in my opinion. I bet you she does, 100%.
yeah.
But they take 5.
But I
So,
mean, but here I am then arguing, hey, compete less, which is not a position I
yeah.
want to take. I want to be, hey, compete a lot. I just think the formula needs to be
Like,
tweaked. I wonder if you reran it and just took marks and didn't do the weighting, what it for by meat quality. I wonder what would come up.
yeah, that would change it dramatically. But then why race each other if it's only about time? Then everyone does time trials in the woods, and they don't want that either.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
I mean, what they should do, they
I don't know the answer. I don't know
World
the answer.
Athletics, they should um, take all the prize money that they were trying to give out at Diamond Leagues
Mm-hmm.
and and Olympic Games, cut it in a third. Like take 2/3 of that prize money away at the
Mm-hmm.
Diamond League level, Continental Tour level, and World Championship Olympic level. Take 2/3 of it away.
This is another popular opinion for you.
Take all that money and put in the world ranking, and therefore
Yeah,
everyone would be incentivized to race each other because they know running a world record in the woods is not going to help you get that money in the world ranking. You have to go
yeah,
run that world record at a Diamond League or a Continental Tour, and then we're going to see more people matching up. If there's value in having a good world ranking,
yeah,
people like Sydney and Delilla would probably run the Diamond League more often. Because right now, the only value in our sport is running at the national championships and the world championships, and that's it.
Or you go the flip side and just weight it based on competition. Take times out, save for hey, you get like a world record bonus to your point total, and then you go from there. Or you just set like a really high criteria, like if you go sub 155 in the women's 8 or something like that, or you go sub 9.8, you get this bonus. Like you make some sort of you're only going to count times when they're extremely high, and then you're only going to weight on like wins and losses. But then again, you're like trials versus Monaco. What's more points? Right? A continental tour versus a diamond league where the continental tour field's actually better. It's tough.
I mean, what they you can't do it comes previous. You can't do previous years either. You can't say like this Monaco meet in
Yeah.
2021 had this many good performances, so in 2022 we're going to give it the rating of what it did in 2021 because the people change. But you also can't do it on competition because that's unfair. Because say I go to
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
meet and I
Yeah.
run a 350 mile, but
Yeah.
second place was 355, and you go to a meet and you run a 351 mile, but second, third, and fourth place were all 353,
Sure.
you're gonna
Sure.
get better credit, and
Yeah.
that's unfair because it'll be, hey,
Yeah.
I did it, So there's all that. It's hard. That's all it comes down to. It's hard. Um,
Yeah.
they're
Well,
trying. I do. I as someone who likes data, I was really against the World Athletics rankings. I think there are major flaws, and I love to shit on them. But as someone who loves stats, I do appreciate the effort and the desire to try to get somewhere. And it is a lot better now than it is, in my opinion, of just descending order lists That's it. It's like
Yeah, point
that's
total,
not fun.
point
Yeah.
totals of, hey, you all had world records. You're in this first group. But this is where I come back to track just being this unwieldy operation, and it's difficult to quantify. And that's why world championships and Olympics are great because they're so clarifying. And yeah, it shouldn't be the whole
Yeah.
sport, but in a way, isn't the Olympics? This is going to be a galaxy brain thing. The Olympics are just like the manifestation of almost the rankings, right? Because there are two ways you can qualify. Well, actually, one way you got to run the standard, but then in the U.S. and other countries, you got to go show up to the meet, then you got to advance and move in, and then like the Olympics and World Championships are just like, hey, here's all these rankings. Now you guys are on the track. Go sort out who's the best, and then
Yeah.
that sort of settles it. Yeah, that
These
should be it.
rankings, they shouldn't be rankings. They should be called seeds. They're seeds. You're the
Okay, I
number
like
one
that.
seed, you're number two seed, and then the Olympics was the playoffs with the seeds, right? Like
Yeah.
Utah was the number one ranked team in the NBA basketball. That's true, but then they didn't win,
Well,
so they're whatever. Yeah, that makes
yeah.
sense. We should stop calling these rankings and start calling them seeds.
Well, I think that's a better way to interpret it because you're not because you can earn it, right? You earn those things, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you would be the top ranked person. Now, that's not going to help like event to event, but I'm more concerned about within events. Right. We'll figure this out by November or December. I think that's when we're going to land on the perfect ranking system on the pot. So stay tuned, November and December. One more. You want to talk about NCAA cross country before we go? Someone in the chat said I look tired. Well, it is tired because you try to do a 3.5 hour live show at 2 in the morning and then host your son's birthday at your house for an interminable amount of time with a giant bounce house and all sorts of kids running around doing crazy stuff. Go cross country.
Well, I want to go cross country, but I think I'm going to save it. I think I'm going to save my cross country takes
Ah.
for the NCAA cross country show, which debuts episode 3 tomorrow on Tuesday. I got some interesting takes. There were some meets where I'm not going to lie. I think they're a little misleading. I think there's some lies that we saw in some of these results, and I'll tell you why they are lies.
Whoa. Oh.
And some of the things that I've been starting to think about predicting are starting to come true. Some things that I thought were happening are not true. I'm going to call out some coaches for
Oh.
not running certain athletes.
Ah.
There's going to be a lot of noise I'm going to start making, but tune in.
Okay. Good.
Rankings are already up. So if you want to know the updated rankings, they're on our site. Who's number one
Yeah.
team at the top 250 individuals, all ranked as of October 4th.
Hmm.
And then we're coming up on pre-nats and Wisco, and that's when the true form of the rankings come together. Right now, we're still in preseason mode in my mind. The season doesn't start till Wisco and
Are they
pre-nats.
seeds or are they
So
rankings?
these are rankings,
Okay. Listen,
not
here's what you
seeds.
got. Here's what you do. NCAA, you go NCAA cross country show truth and lies is the name of this week's episode. And then you
Yeah.
get a screenshot of you like this on one side and then stylized YouTube font over it. Or like
Okay.
this. Maybe that
I think
one.
I just might use
That's a
your
good one.
screenshot. I'll just
Yeah,
use the
you can use
photo of
either
you.
one. I'll
Okay.
pose for a second. I'll hold that shot right there.
All right.
Or again, the
But
really indignant pointing the finger of like this person's a liar. And then on the other image, you're pointing at somebody. I don't know, whoever you think is lying out there. I'm assuming you're talking
but
about
yeah,
lying, like they're misleading, like they're not as good as they say they are, or they'll be better than they actually are. Or are people
yeah.
actually lying to you? Are they
There's
coaches
teams that are
texting
going to
you?
be better than they're saying they are. There's teams that are worse than they're saying they are, and there's teams that just need to. Hey, man, what are you doing? This isn't cool. I hate it all. I'm not letting. I'm not holding back. Not holding
Oh,
back.
I think I know who you're talking about because someone in the chat is talking about a team that's load managing. But you know what? We'll save that. We'll save that. We'll save that for the cross country
That's one
show.
of the teams.
Uh,
That's one of the teams.
Tampa Eagle says good pod today. Hey, thanks. I appreciate positive feedback. Uh, Anthony says, what about the rumor the Jamaican coach will be coaching U.S. Sprinter? We talked about that was that on the Friday pod, Gordon, or the Thursday pod? That was the
I
September
think it was the
30th
Friday
pod.
pod.
Yeah, which
Maybe it
was
was
actually posted
Thursday.
on
Thursday.
Thursday, but I didn't hit publish, I don't think,
Yeah.
because I'm an idiot. Gordon fixed it. So go back. You can listen to that one. Is it on YouTube? It's on YouTube, right? And then it's also now on
Wait,
audio
hold
as
on.
well.
No, the rumor mill one went up. Hold on. Did we not upload that pod? Oh no. Oh no. What do we do? Did we screw it
Man,
up?
we did a pod and nobody
No, no,
listened
it's
except
up. Yeah.
Cole. Okay.
Off-season rumor mill. It went up September 30th, whenever that
Yeah,
was.
yeah. Yeah, that
So we're good.
we went into the whole
Yeah.
Stephen Francis, Elaine Thompson, hurrah, and then of course the mysterious international athlete who they said was what very very well known and not European were the two hints that we got. We wanted to play 10 questions or 20 questions with Stephen Francis. I think we can nail it down. Like I can name that athlete in 5 questions. Go. I think we could do it.
So yeah,
is it so and so?
listen to that pod. It's
Yeah.
episode 352. That's the
There
episode
you go.
number.
We went long on that one. That one we went in depth. We did all the different machinations of who it could be and why it would or would not be a good fit and why it would definitely be an interesting fit if it happened. But Wednesday, we'll talk Chicago, we'll talk Boston. We will hopefully get into some sprint news. If there's sprint news around the world, we'll maybe have World Athletics rankings figured out by then. Probably not. Again, that's probably going to be a
Well,
November, December project, but who knows?
we have World Athletic rank. I'm making the FloTrack rankings. I'm gonna have a deep
Okay,
dive,
good.
top 10 or top 20, US based and world. So I'll do a world
Okay,
one
good.
and a US one. So
Okay.
uh,
And I will tell you why you're wrong. And then we also could start talking about who athlete of the year should be the top 3 men, top 3 women, and then pick who we think should be the World Athletics athlete of the year. But we'll get to that later on this week. Thanks, Colt. Thanks, Travis. We're back. We're on YouTube. It's amazing. We have awesome producers, and we appreciate them. Gordon, talk to you Wednesday, man.